The air was reduced to a chill in Mississippi. Christmas was right around the corner, and from Lizardman's 400-story skyscraper he could see families scattered around the city floor. Everyone this time of year always seemed so happy. Shopping, laughing, enjoying their hot chocolate. But not Lizardman. He slowly looked up from the city floor to the clouds. Snowflakes, parachuting their way down from them. He turned away from the balcony, and walked over to his bookshelf. He traced across the cover until his claw landed on an old red scrapbook, pulled it out, and walked over to his chair near the fireplace. "It's been a few years, hasn't it, huh?" he thought. The cover of the scrapbook was old and fading away, the plastic covering starting to tear. He opened to the first page. The first picture was of just a small lizard boy. It was black and white, he was wearing pajamas, his arm was wrapped around a small girl about the same age. They were both smiling ear to ear. "Ah, Marianne, our first Christmas." He put his claw on the photo, and closed his eyes. "You see, when I was first born, my parents didn't know what to do with me. You can expect that when two normal hard-working people give birth to a lizard baby. They tried, for a while. Judged by their town, and spending a fortune to keep up with my needs. As you can imagine, I was the start of many fights between them. My pa, he never really wanted me around, always wanted a real son. I really think that my ma was the reason I made it so long with them. The fighting didn't get any better over the years, and finally I was just about to turn 5 years old. I was going to be able to start school, just like all of the other kids. I was so excited. We weren't exactly rich, but my mother made sure I had all of the supplies I needed. She really did love me. That morning, I put on my new school uniform, loaded all of my pencils and crayons into my backpack, and was ready to go. I stood by the door. "Come on guys, we're gonna be late," I said cheerfully. My parents came down from the stairs. My mother was crying. She bent down and gave me a hug. "Don't cry, Mom, I'm gonna do just fine. I'll tell you all about my first day when you pick me up." She pulled away and wiped the tears from her eyes. "I'm so proud of you." She asked my father to take out the camera, and get a picture of them. There it was. Just a young lizard boy, happy as ever, and my mom. Her arms were wrapped around my shoulder, and she was pressing her cheek up against mine tightly. Her eyes were closed, but you could tell she had been crying. After the picture, we rode in my dad's truck to the school. They walked me inside and told me they had to fill out some paperwork first. We sat in the waiting room. I could see through the glass doors there was a bunch of other children playing out in the courtyard. Some looked older than me, and some even younger. I thought that seemed odd since I was just allowed to start school. Finally my parents were done with the paperwork. My mom knelt down to me. "I'm so sorry we had to do this. I just want you to know that I will always love you." I looked at her confused. "What do you mean?" "I have to go to school, Mom. It's not your fault." A woman walked out and stood over us as my mother hugged me. My mom stood up and my father grabbed her hand. Now the woman was kneeling. "Don't worry, son, we're going to be taking good care of you from now on. There's a bunch of boys and girls out there that are very excited to meet you." I looked at my mother and father. "You're giving me away?" I broke down into tears. They started to walk out of the building and the woman took me into the courtyard. There was a chain link fence and I could see my parents leaving. I just stood there and watched as they got to their truck. Finally my mother stopped at the door. She looked at me and tried to smile, but broke down into tears. I put my hand up to the fence, but when she got into the car, and they drove off, it slid back down to my side. That was the last time I saw them. I got picked on a lot in the orphanage, but it wasn't all bad. I did have one friend, a girl by the name of Marianne. I remember we used to color together, and play tag during every recess. She was smart, and funny. In class I could never keep up with the other kids, but she helped me learn how to read and write. She even made me a bracelet with my name on it. During my time there I saw a bunch of other children come and go. I knew it would only be a matter of time before we were split up. It always seemed like families were interested in her, but they never went through with it. I could never figure out why. Until one day everything changed. It was a normal day, we were playing outside, and one of the women who worked they called for her. "Marianne, there's someone here to see you." She looked at me and gave a half smile. Then got up and walked over to the doorway. Some time went by, but eventually they came back out. I saw her standing with a man and a woman. It was her time. I was happy for her, but I hung my head in disappointment. Just then the woman opened the door, and said, "Lizardman, could you come in here please?" I got up and walked inside. Marianne gave me a hug. She told me we had a new family. I didn't know what to say. The man that was supposed to be my new father bent down. He put his hand on my shoulder. "You know, we just loved Marianne, we thought she seemed so kind and loving. And when she told us, she's not going anywhere without you, it just broke our hearts. We had to give both of you a new home." I looked over at her and smiled. I never realized it before, but that was the reason she was never adopted. She was looking out for me. Lizardman flipped through the pages of the scrapbook. Birthdays, holidays, summer vacation. They were inseparable growing up. He stopped on a picture of the two standing in front of an old station wagon. Our first car. He smiled. So many boyfriends I had to beat up in those teen years. The next pages were the happiest. First house, her wedding, her finishing her master's degree. But as the pages go on you start to notice something. In every picture Lizardman looks exactly the same, but Marianne is visibly aging. Pictures of her and her children, them graduating, these were still happy memories. But he hesitated to keep going. As he started to get close to the end of the book, he felt his jaw start to tremble. She was finally an old woman. Rex, her husband, wasn't around anymore, and he had to spend a lot of time taking care of her in these years. Lizardman rubbed a photo with his finger. This was just after her first heart attack. He was wheeling her out of the hospital, and despite the circumstances they both had a smile on their face. I was so glad she was okay. He kept turning the pages starting to thin out, and he knew he was almost at the end. He flipped to the last page. It was dedicated to just one photo. He was kneeling down, flowers in his hand. Tears streamed from his eyes. Her tombstone read, "Marianne. June 1, 1985, December 8, 1971. I'm not going anywhere without you." Lizardman put the book back on the shelf. There was a knock at the door. He wiped a tear from his eye, and walked over to answer it. "Macklemore, what are you doing here?" He was with some of his friends. "Hey buddy, we're all going out Christmas caroling tonight, any chance you wanna hit the streets with us?" Lizardman gave him a half smile. "It's okay buddy, I know this time of year's rough for you." Macklemore leaned in and gave him a hug. "If there's anything I can do for you, just give me a call, I love you buddy." Lizardman took a deep breath. "I love you too, thank you for everything." Macklemore gave him a sincere smile, and they were off to Christmas carol for the next couple hours. Lizardman walked back over to the balcony. By now the sun was setting, the snow was falling a little bit harder. He looked off into the distance, and then down at the bracelet she made him. "You're right, I'm not going anywhere without you."